Hello from Israel. It's really nice to be able to see some of your faces, and I hope you are all hanging in there. I know this is a crazy time for all of us, and I'm really honored and touched that Rabbi Fein asked me to come share my story. And so I wanted to share with you tonight. Thank God, I have been. I'm a professional marathon runner for Israel. And normally when I speak, I share, my journey from how I basically, in 4 years, I went from being a non-existent runner, just a mom of, 4 young children, to becoming the national champion for Israel and training to represent Israel in the Olympics, which is not something I ever dreamed of in my life. And really the truth is that what I've learned the most on my journey, more than anything else, is that we have so much more strength than we realize, that there's so much more within us than we often are aware of, truly aware of. And what I want to share with you tonight, I want to share with you I've actually run 6 marathons, but I want to share 5 marathon stories with you. And I want to talk about, I view the marathon as an incredible metaphor for life. And running has helped strengthen my faith, my emunah, my trust in God. And a lot of times, people ask me, how do you have so much faith? And I talk about emunah, our faith, our trust in God. It's like a muscle that we keep flexing over and over and over. And the more that we learn to acknowledge and incorporate and integrate the ideas of what it means to have faith in God and know that He is running the world and trust that He has our back, and we can repeat these things through both the good and bad situations, that muscle becomes stronger until it becomes so natural that it's just part of who we are. And that when we experience something, unexpected or difficult in our life, it's the first thought that pops into our head because it's something that we've worked on and become stronger. And just like with any muscle that you're developing. So I want to talk about developing this muscle of faith. And I want to share my 5 marathon stories with you that each marathon highlighted for me a different idea. And I think we'll leave you with practical tools and messages that you can bring into your own life. So I'm going to start with how I got into running in the first place, right? Because I said, 4 years ago, February 2016 is when I ran my first marathon. And I had not exercised in 6 years. I had 4 kids in 6 years. And I always joke, the most running I was doing was around the couch, after my kids. And I was totally out of shape. And I realized it. I had come in, I was feeling like I had lost a part of myself. And so I said to my husband, I want to do something about it. I want to change. And I told him, that's it. I'm running a marathon. This is my big goal. And, I always joke, most people do, they want to get back in shape. They haven't exercised at all. So they say, I'm going to do the couch to 5K, right? And I did the couch to marathon route, which is, a little bit extreme, but what I wanted most of my life at the time was I wanted to get back into exercise. I wanted consistency. I wanted to be able to get out there and move my body and do it on a consistent basis. And I knew that if I'd picked any other distance, like even a half marathon or 10K or 5K, it wouldn't obligate me to train because I was naturally athletic, but I just wasn't doing it. But no one can show up to the start line of a marathon without putting in that work. You have to train for it. You have to build up. You have to get to the point to be able to run 42 kilometers. You can't do it without putting yourself out there. So I set my goal of running a marathon. And I remember when I signed up for this first race, my husband said to me, how long do you think it's going to take you? And he said, do you think you can run the marathon in 4.5 hours? And I remember doing the math in my head, and I was like, that's 10 minutes per mile. No way. That is way too fast. I could not possibly do that. And he was helping me register for the Tel Aviv Marathon. I had given myself 4 months to train for it. And He's like, fine, I'll put down 4:40 for you. I didn't have any time goal. All I want to do is cross the finish line and say I've done a marathon. And I started training, and really, I loved running from the beginning. It was amazing because as a mom, I was so busy taking care of everyone else, but I had forgotten to take care of myself. And I always say, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I needed that time and space, and I didn't even realize how badly I needed it. And I was really enjoying the training. And about a month before I ran my first ever marathon, my husband says to me, you don't want to just cross the finish line of the marathon. You want to know when you crossed the finish line that you gave it your all. And I remember I was like insulted. Like, I've never run any race in my life. Like, isn't that giving it my all? Like, what more do you want from me? And he said, no, I'm telling you, you're a competitive person. You want to know that when you go out there and run, you got the best possible time you could. And I was like, I don't want any pressure. I just want to know that I did this distance, But I said, what do you have in mind? What do you want me to do? He told me, why don't you go out and run a half marathon time trial, see what you're capable of in half a marathon, and then we'll plug that number into Race Predictor, and based on that, be able to tell you what you should be able to do in a full marathon, the full distance. So I said, fine. I agreed to his plan, even though, remember, I don't want any pressure. I don't want to push myself too much. And I went to the park, and I literally ran like 13 loops of a park for my own half marathon time trial. And I came back and told my husband, I just finished in 1 hour and 41 minutes. Now, I don't know how many of you here are runners. If you are, I'm just curious. You can put like a yes in the chat. I like knowing if, you don't have to be a runner at all, but I like to know who I'm talking to. And so he said to me, based on that, you should be able to run a 3.5-hour marathon. And I remember when I heard that, I said, you're nuts. That's crazy. Like, that's impossible. There's no way I am going to be able to run a 3.5-hour marathon. And it was actually like terrifying to hear because, he was telling me that I am going to run a distance I've never run before in my life at a pace, 8 minutes per mile. A 3.5-hour marathon's an 8-minute per mile pace that I'd never run before in my life. And it seemed impossible and really scary because you know what the biggest mistake that amateur runners make is they start out too fast. And if you start out your race too fast, then you'll blow up. You won't be able to finish, and it's so common because when you get to the start line, you're standing there. Of course, your legs feel good. They haven't taken a step and there's all that energy and adrenaline. And if you go out too fast, then by the end, you're fatigued and you can't finish. And I did not want that to happen to me. So my husband's telling me to do this impossible, scary, crazy, terrifying. Connection's unstable. So if you're having trouble hearing me, progressively faster every mile. And he even offered, he said, I'll get you a running watch. And he programmed it so that literally I had of time I wanted to run for each mile, and it would beep if I went too fast or too slow. So I knew I have this plan. He gives me a plan. And I remember thinking, like, this is nuts. This is crazy. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to do it. But you know what my first marathon taught me? The biggest lesson I've learned, and it's something that I tell myself every single time and time again. Don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Because the greatest growth in life happens out of our comfort zone. And when I say stepping out of our comfort zone, what I mean is doing something where you don't know whether you're going to succeed or fail. That's completely scary to you. So here I am about to go into this race, my first marathon ever. And remember, I didn't want any pressure. And now I have this goal to try and do a 3.5-hour marathon. And I remember I'm standing at the start line of the race. This is the first time I've been away from my family. Like, I slept in Tel Aviv the night before. I feel like a free bird. I'm not with my kids. And I'm about to do Mission Impossible. And I have my watch and the race starts and my eyes are just like glued to the watch the whole time. Like if I'm on pace, if I'm on track. And, you know, it's going according to plan. And halfway through the marathon, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm thinking, wow, like this is going well. I can even go a little bit faster. 5 miles to the finish line. My husband was there, kids were there with signs cheering me on. And my husband ran the last 5 miles with me. And at that point, I was passing everyone on the track, on the race, because a lot of people, you know, had started out too fast. And I crossed the finish line of my first ever marathon, which 4 months before, I didn't know if I was going to be able to finish in 4.5 hours. I didn't think I'd be able to. I crossed the finish line in 3 hours and 27 minutes. And I'm telling you this right now, tonight, because if I hadn't taken that risk and done something that was uncomfortable and that was hard and challenging for me, I probably wouldn't be sharing my story today. Because stepping out of my comfort zone, going through that challenge is what revealed to me that I am good at running. Before that, I had no idea. I didn't realize that. And after going through that race, that experience, that was a challenge for me, it opened my eyes up to, wow, you know, you are a gifted runner. Not most people, you know, can run a marathon after 4 months in 3 hours and 27 minutes. I actually, turns out I came in 6th woman in Tel Aviv, and I had no idea. And what it clarified for me is something that I think is extremely relevant to what we're going through right now. The idea of challenges in life. It changed my mindset, because a lot of times, you know, we look at a challenge. It's not something we'd ever want. We look at, you know, a test. God sends us tests. We all have tests. We face tests all the time. And we could say, no, it's too hard for me. It's not something or we could choose to view our challenges as the greatest blessing for us. They are opportunities for us to discover our strengths, for us to recognize and realize and uncover parts of ourselves that we never knew about before, for us to become a better version of ourselves, for us to grow into who we're meant to be. And we can only become that best version of ourselves by going through these obstacles. So it literally changed my whole perspective, and it's something I've taken with me from here on until now. And like even now, when I'm in Corona, it's like I'm constantly asking myself, how am I using this opportunity to become a better person? How is this going to change me and my family? So that was my first marathon, and I think, and it really opened my eyes to the idea that every challenge we face is truly a blessing and an opportunity and a gift, and that I'm willing to put myself out there and take risks and step out of my comfort zone in order to become and grow into the person I'm meant to be. Now, after that, I was really hooked on running. I loved it. Like, I realized, like, I'm good at it, and it's something I enjoy. And actually, the following year, I ran the Tel Aviv 2017 marathon, 7 months pregnant. I'm not going to really share that story right now, but if anything, one thing I took from that marathon was just the idea of, say it in Hebrew, the quote in Hebrew, and I'll translate, "En davar ha'omed b'fnei haratzon," which is, there's nothing that stands in the way of our willpower. And we can do anything when we tap into the power of our ratzon, our will. And I'll come back to that concept a little bit later. But so I ran 7 months pregnant, and then I continued running literally about a month after I gave birth. I got back into running, and I set a goal for myself. So the next goal I set for myself is that I wanted to win the Jerusalem Marathon. I wanted to be the fastest Israeli woman in the Jerusalem Marathon. Now, what's unique about Jerusalem is that it's a very hilly course. It's one of the most difficult courses. So it doesn't necessarily attract the best runners in Israel, but I looked at like previous years' times, what women had run. And I saw that, you know, women had won the marathon with like a 3:20, 3:18. And here I ran my first marathon ever in a 3:27. So it's true, Jerusalem's a lot more hilly, but I should be able to do it, right? So I set this goal for myself, and I start training more seriously. Now I'm running 5 or 6 times a week, and I'm really getting into it, and I'm passionate about it. This is my mission. And a month and a half before the marathon, I ran my first 20-mile long run, and I ran it on the Jerusalem course to see, like, test out the hills. And I remember I came back completely depleted, like dead. I couldn't move. I was so exhausted. It had taken me like a full 3 hours of running plus an extra half hour of rest, just because every hill had like totally killed me. And I felt so out of shape. And it was strange because I'd been training for like a good 5-6 months now. And I was like, what's going on? Why do I feel weaker, not stronger? And I remember I even texted like my group of friends of women. We all support each other in running. And I was like, well, I guess my Jerusalem dreams are out the window. Like, I'm never going to be able to do this. I don't know what's going on with me, but something's wrong. And the next day I went to get a blood test because I felt like, myself. And sure enough, the results come back and I'm severely anemic. My hemoglobin is 8. The doctor says to me, most people in your situation would lie trying to run 50, 60 miles a week. I was like, but doctor, like, it can't be, I have a marathon to win in a month. Like, I can't be resting right now, And then the doctor said to me, like, you should be testing yourself for celiac disease. And I remember, because like, if you have celiac, you're not absorbing properly. So that would explain why my iron is so low. And I remember I was laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, my whole family has celiac, but I was always the lucky child that doesn't have it. I don't need to test myself. But I went and got tested. And sure enough, I found out I have celiac disease. I can't eat gluten anymore. Now, the truth is, I always say, finding celiac disease was a big blessing in disguise. But in that moment, when I had all these big plans and dreams for myself, and all of a sudden, it seems like everything is crashing down and everything I wanted is falling apart. And I'm sure you have all experienced that yourself. And it might be right now, and it might be previous times where you face a serious obstacle for the goal that you're chasing, and things don't seem to be working out, and everything seems to be falling apart. It's very easy to give up in those moments and to get defeated. And I recognize I have 2 options. I can either, listen to that negative voice in my head. And have you ever noticed that the second you let those negative voices take over, it only spirals downward from there? It's like our mind is so powerful. It's the second, and whatever message we send, that's how our body responds. So either you can go and you can give up, you can accept defeat, you can listen to the negative voices. Or when you face an obstacle, you have a choice to become a fighter and to hold on to the positive every single step of the way and say, I'm not giving up. I'm going to find the positive in this situation. I believe that everything that happens to me is for the good, and I'm going to find it. I guarantee you that if you choose to hold on to the positive, you will never lose out. Because at the very least, even if things don't work out, you will become a better person as a result because you're finding the positive in it. So I said to myself right now, I'm going to choose that option. I'm going to look on the bright side. And you know what? The truth is that I'm very lucky because most people could, I had serious health issues, questions, and I got answers within 1 week. I knew exactly what I need to do to take care of myself. And some people struggle with health issues for months. And then I said, I live in Jerusalem, and if I can't run it this year, I can always try again next year. And I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to look on the bright side. I'm going to see what happens and stay hopeful, and let me see where it goes. So right away, I stopped eating gluten because I knew I need to cut that out. And I got an iron IV, and I continued training optimistically. I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I said, let me see. Now, a week before the Jerusalem Marathon, I made another decision. And this is a personal part of my story. That year, in December 2017, I lost my 14-year-old cousin to anorexia. Her name was Daniela Chaya Pardes. And unfortunately, she was hospitalized with anorexia. And when she came out of the hospital, the transition from hospital back to everyday life was very, very difficult for her. And she didn't end up making it. And her family, who's amazing, her mom, who to me is an incredible role model of what it means to be a fighter, of someone who always tries to find the positive. She said, I don't want to turn this tragedy into something that, I don't want to let it hold me back. I want to use it to become, to make a difference in the world. And she said, how can I do something positive in my daughter's memory? So she had a dream to create a rehab program for any child or teenager suffering from mental health issues, to help them, like a day center when they come out of the hospital, to help them transition back to everyday life. And I had a dream to win the Jerusalem Marathon. And I said, maybe we could combine forces. And a week before the marathon, I made a campaign to try and raise money for Beit Daniela, because I said, if I get on the podium, then we can really raise awareness for this cause. And, it will be a good opportunity for us to raise money. Even though personally, I hate fundraising. It was completely stepping out of my comfort zone. But I did it. And I remember the night before the marathon, my husband was encouraging me, told me, if you want to win the Jerusalem Marathon, you can't wear the Beit Daniela shirt to the race, because the Beit Daniela shirt was not dry fit. And if you're a runner, if you're racing, you need to wear your dry fit material to have the best, And I remember I told my husband, if God wants me to win the Jerusalem Marathon, I can win it in whatever shirt I'm wearing. I can wear the Beatie Deutsch shirt. So sure enough, the next day, I'm on the start line. And this is the first time in my life that I'm racing, every second matters. So I'm right at the front of the race, and I'm standing behind Shadrach Kipaji, who's the 7-time Kenyan winner of the Jerusalem Marathon. And the contrast between us is great. There's an amazing picture that captures it, because he looks like a runner. He's tall. He's in his short shorts, his tank top, from Kenya. He looks like he should be there. And then there's me. I'm about half his height. I'm very short. I'm not even 5 feet. And I'm in my head covering and my long sleeve and my skirt. And I look like a Yiddish mom out of the kitchen, not like a marathon runner. But I'm there, and I'm determined to win this race. And when the gun goes off, I am running faster than I had ever planned. And, if you were listening, what's my number one rule about racing? Don't start out too fast. You don't want to start out too fast in the beginning. So I remember I was looking at my watch. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going faster than I should be, but it feels so good. I can't believe this. What's going on? And I was running with the best runners there. So they were all running fast, and I started out. And then I said, I had a conversation with God. And this is what I said. And I always say, you can talk to God at any point in the day, at any point in your life, whatever you're going through. He wants to hear from you. I talk to God like he's my good friend, I said to him, there's a rule, a clause in Judaism, we don't rely on miracles. But God, I'm not asking you for a miracle, because I did the hard work. I put in the effort. I trained for this race. All I'm asking you for is, if you want to give me a little speed today, I'll take it, right? God, you can do, I think it'll give me a little extra speed. And that was my thoughts. And then I started to think of the blessing we say every morning. We thank God for Hanoten Laya'ef Koch. God gives strength to the weary. Those are the words we say every single morning. Great blessing if you're a mom, And so I'm running through the streets of Jerusalem, and I'm busy. Those are the words I'm repeating over and over in my head. And I didn't look at my watch once. I didn't even know what pace I was running. I just said, God, when I'm tired, you carry me. And I thought of the promise God makes to us, I will carry you on the wings of eagles. And that's what I pictured, God's carrying me. And I remember, the last kilometer of this marathon, after you've run 41 kilometers of hill, the last kilometer, it's all uphill. And I sprinted to the finish line, which a month and a half before, remember, I hit an obstacle. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to even run at all. And I crossed the finish line 3 hours, 9 minutes, fastest Israeli woman, and won the race. But what I'm more proud of is that because I was able to, it made a lot of headlines because people were shocked. Wow, a mom of 5 can win races, or you can run in a skirt and win races. And so there were a lot of headlines out there. And we raised $50,000 for Beit Daniela. And today, Beit Daniela is open and really saving the lives of children who need it. So my message from the Jerusalem Marathon, the second message I want to share just is when you face obstacles in life, find the positive and hold on to it. Now, let's get to my third marathon. That was the Tiberias National Championship Marathon in January 2018. So after I ran Jerusalem, a lot of people encouraged me. They said, okay, you got to get serious, because I was total amateur. I was doing it as a side hobby. I was still working full time. I had, 5 kids, thank God. And people told me, get a coach, join a group. And that's what I did. And I joined a running group for the first time. And my coach told me, okay, we are all training for the Tiberias Marathon. That's where all the serious runners go. It's the Israel National Championship Marathon. And we have 4 months to train for it. And I remember when she told me this, I was like, okay, I'm not going to win the championship because I'm a newbie runner. There's a lot of other good runners out there in Israel. I'm just going to, maybe I'll place somewhere up there, but I'm not going to win. But as the months are progressing through this training, I trained in a way I never had before. And I found myself getting a lot stronger. And actually, a month before the big race, I ran a half marathon and I ended up winning. It was the national championship half marathon. It was pouring rain that day. I remember thinking, my skirt, I'm running with a skirt. I have a serious disadvantage. I'm going to be schlepping 10 extra pounds of water. And then I quickly told myself, the mitzvot, the command, when we keep a mitzvah, it never holds us back. Our mitzvot are our wings. And I'm like, my skirt is going to power me to the finish line. And sure enough, I did end up winning that half marathon championship. So now I realize, wait, I'm in a good position here. Maybe I can even win the national championship. And a week before the day of the big race, my coach gives me a pep talk. She gives everyone in the group their, big pep talk before our race day. And this is what she says to me. She says, I've looked at all the other, competitors who are coming. I know all the women who are running, and I know what they're capable of, and I know what you're capable of. She says, you have this race in the bag. You are going to win. All you need to do is run a 6:26-minute mile or a 4-minute kilometer for, I don't know, in England, you guys do kilometers or miles? I've heard I could switch off, but I can switch between. She said you need to run a 4-minute kilometer for 42 kilometers, and then you're good. You have your 2:48 marathon, and you'll win. I always joke, you can go ahead and try a 4-minute kilometer for 1 kilometer and see how it feels. But basically, she was telling me, this is your race. And she gave me the plan. Now, when she told me I'm on pace for, I should be able to do a 2:48 marathon, wheels started turning in my head. And I said, wait a minute. Maybe I can actually go for the Olympic standard, because the standard time was a 2:45 marathon. And so I'm not so far off. And I remember I asked my coach, do you think I can run a 2:45 marathon? She said to me, these were her words, if you try and go faster and push the pace before 30 kilometers, before you hit the 30-kilometer mark, oy vavoilach, woe to you. Don't push it. She's like, I think you should be able to do a 2:48 marathon. But listen, I'm making a crazy jump. My fastest marathon until that point was a 3:09. Don't push it, lady. Don't try to take on too much. And I remember I was busy calculating in my head, if I want to cut off 3 minutes in the final 12 kilometers of the marathon, how much faster am I going to have to run? And I didn't even know if I could do it. But day of the race comes. At this point, people in Israel had started to recognize me. Everyone's cheering for me. Everyone's expecting me to win this race. My entire family had come up to celebrate, to be there and support me, to be in Tiberias. And the gun goes off and we start running. And I'm running with the guys that I've been training with for all these months leading up to it. And you know what? It feels amazing. Every step, it feels like a dance. And I always say, running is an incredible celebration of your body, of the miracle that our body is. We take it for granted every step. But if you know how many muscles have to work together, just every step we take, it's like I was singing as I'm running, just the words of this incredible song. Kol atzmotai tomarna. All my limbs should say, Hashem mi kamocha, God, who is like you? It's a miracle. And it felt like a dream. It felt perfect. And the race is going exactly the way it needs to be. I'm in first place, and there's one woman behind me, but I could tell she's struggling. and she's going to fall behind and she's not able to keep up. And as we're getting closer to the halfway point, all of a sudden I look over and I see on the other side of the course, this course just goes out and back. I see on the other side another woman, and she's already coming back. And I remember, I can't believe it. I'm like, who is she? She wasn't at the starting line. I didn't see her on the start line. And she wasn't on the list of participants. Where'd she come from? And I think for a moment, maybe she's not Israeli, because if she's not Israeli, it doesn't matter. This is the Israel National Championship. But I look a little closer, and sure enough, I recognize her. She is Israeli. And not only that, she holds the record for one of the fastest times in Israel. She's run a 2:38 marathon this year, and she's way ahead of me. So I guess there goes my national championship. I'm not winning any race today. And my heart sinks for a minute. And then a second later, another thought comes to me. And this is something that I'd been meditating on. Like every time I'd have a hard workout, this is what like would power me through. This idea that if we recognize that every single one of us has a tselem, a spark of godliness within us, we are connected to God, and God can do anything. God is infinite. God is the source of everything in our life. There's nothing too big or too small for him to do. So if we recognize we're connected to infinity, then there are no limits to what we could achieve. And the words I said in my head in that moment are, Hashem, God is with me every step of the way, and anything is possible. And you know what? I'm telling you now, and I know the outcome. But in that moment, I had no idea what's going to be. But I said to myself, the race is not over till it's over, and I'm going to give it all I've got. And so as we get to the halfway point where we're turning around and we're coming back, I turn to the guys that I'm following, that I've been running with. And they all knew my coach's words. Our coach said, do not start getting faster at the halfway point. That's too early to push. But I said, I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to go and try and chase that other woman, because I believe anything is possible. God's with me every step of the way. And I said, peace out, guys. I'm running. And I started to, continue running faster to try and see who I could catch up to. And I remember I had two voices in my head. I had the words of my coach screaming like, what are you doing? You're going to blow up. And it's like all that fear and panic, like how in the world do you think you're going to be able to run this fast for another 13 miles? But guess what? I chose to ignore that voice, and I didn't listen to it. And I let the other words in my other ear, God is with me every step of the way, I let them get louder and louder and louder. And what I've realized in life is that fear holds us back, and our belief in ourselves and in God is what propels us forward. And we have to hold on to the belief and not listen to those fears, push them aside. So, and I think if I can just get to the next person and have someone to follow, because it's much easier psychologically to pace yourself off someone. And I catch up to a guy and I run with him for a little bit, and then I continue to run further. And at this point, I've been running by myself for a while, and suddenly I hear people cheering, people on the other side cheering, and they say, Yelena's not so far ahead. And she was the woman that I'm chasing. And I think, what? I'm actually getting closer. I'm catching up to her. And sure enough, I look over and I see her. She's down there. She's not that far ahead. So I sprint down the hill. I love hills because I'm from Jerusalem. And I land right on her back. And I think to myself, amazing. I've got this. All I have to do is stick with her till the end of the race. And then about 100 meters to the finish line, I'll sprint ahead, and I've regained the national championship. And you know what? After 2 minutes of me following her, she turns to me and she says, Ani Gmura, I'm finished. This is your race. Keep going. And she was such an incredible sport. She didn't want me to lose even 1 minute of what it was possible for me to do. And she encouraged me. She realized it wasn't her day. She wasn't feeling as great as she had been, and she had been slowing. And she encouraged me to keep going. And so I really wanted that 2:45 time. My watch had been set to tell me if I'm on target for the 2:45. And I'm looking at my watch, and now it's telling me 2:43. And then I think maybe I could go a little bit faster. And I'm pushing myself. And I remember 100 meters to the finish line, I passed all my kids. I was blowing kisses to my kids. And I crossed the finish line in 2 hours, 42 minutes. I won the national championship, and I have never felt so good at a marathon finish line. And I was so mind blown by that whole experience. You can see it in the pictures. But the postscript to that story is that my coach today, who is amazing and I have a wonderful relationship with, he was actually a judge on the course that day that I ran Tveria. And he's been training me for, like, since after winning that race, he's been training me. Now, he's a proud atheist. He doesn't believe in God. But he said to me, he said, I looked through all your training logs leading up to the Tveria Marathon and all the workouts you ran. And he's a stickler for numbers. He knows the data cold. And he said, there is no physiological explanation for how you ran the way you did. It was a miracle. And those were his words, not mine. But what I always say is when you open the door for God in your life and you know really that anything is possible with God, he's running the show, he can do anything for you, then God opens doors for you. So that was my third marathon to share. And I think it's very, very powerful. And I want to move on to, I want to share with you 2 more marathon stories if we have time. But after I won the national championship, basically I was asked by the Israeli Olympic Committee to represent Israel in the Olympics, to become an Olympic candidate. And it was very exciting. You know, I transitioned from I was working in Jewish outreach, and now I became a professional marathon runner. And then in March of 2019, the World Athletics Federation, which they are the one that organize all the standards for the track and field in the Olympics, they dropped a bomb. And they said that no longer is 2:45 going to be sufficient for the women's marathon time. And you know what? Not even 2:37, which in previous years, some of the marathons had switched off between 2:37, 2:45 as the standard. They said, if you want to qualify as a woman for the Tokyo 2020 marathon event, you need to do a time of 2:29:30. Now, I know most of you are not necessarily runners and appreciate the difference, but that is a huge drop in time. Basically, they were cutting off, you have to run 15 minutes faster than any previous standard. And they said they're only taking 80 marathon runners as opposed to 160. So things got a lot more difficult for me. And I remember my husband, who's been my biggest supporter all along and always told me, you know, to go after. Right from the very beginning, he encouraged me to push myself. He said to me, you know, honey, you're an amazing runner, and I think everything you've done is so great, but you can pretty much kiss your Olympic dreams goodbye. Like, there's no way you're hitting that standard. And I remember telling him, like, first of all, I'm Israeli, and I have chutzpah, and I don't take no for an answer. And you know what? If God wants me to run in this marathon, like I said, he'll help me get there. And I have faith in that. So my coach and I came up with a plan, because in addition to this 2:29:30 standard, they also said you could get ranked in the top 80. If you make it to the list of top 80 women worldwide, you're good. So we came up with a plan for me to try and qualify through the ranking. And it's a very complicated system. You need to get points by doing a certain time in the marathon, and also how you place in the marathon. So we decided that the best marathon for me to run to get like the most amount of points would be the Cape Town Marathon. And that's what I trained for. Now, and because Cape Town is called a gold label course, they give you, I'll get a certain amount of a larger number of points if I qualify, if I came in 8th place on this course. And basically I had the goal, I have to come in 8th place woman, and I have to run a 2:36 marathon. And it seemed very, very possible, and I'm training for it. And we moved, I actually spent all summer, we traveled and did like an altitude training camp, and then we came back and we moved 2 weeks before the marathon. Now, I'm sure for any of you, you know, moving is very stressful. And the 2 weeks before a marathon, that's when, as a professional runner, you're supposed to spend the most time being the most relaxed, not on your feet, not doing anything, trying to rest as much as possible. And here I am, mama 5, moved to a new place, And it was like, I am not a person who gets anxious or worried or stressed, but I was feeling a lot of anxiety and worry and stress because there's all this pressure for me to perform in this marathon. And I remember every run I did felt horrible. And we just moved and I'm getting everything settled. And then I get to Cape Town, and Cape Town is supposed to be a course where non-national runners are coming. So I should have a good chance of getting to place like I needed. But all of a sudden this year, Cape Town decided to go for a platinum label. And so they invited 18 elite women to the field, 18 women who are all faster than me. And I need to come in 8th. And I remember thinking, I'm like, God, what are you doing to me? Like, why are you doing this to me? And I was feeling so much like doubt in myself. And then I said, okay, enough is enough. Like, I have to change my attitude. And I'd actually just read the book Born to Run, which is it's a great book. And it was talking about the secret to running well. And I really think it's the secret to doing anything well in life. It says to run out of joy. Love it. Run because your body enjoys it. The truth is, when you're doing things from a place of joy, it changes everything. Your body responds so much better. You're more relaxed. You're calm. And actually, and I always think about like Rebbetzin Yemima Mizrahi, one of my big role models. She talked about happiness being the secret to everything we do, the foundation for life. And she quotes Rabbi Nachman, who says, "Mitzvah gedola liot b'simcha tamid." It's one of the greatest commandments is to be happy always. And if you try it for yourself and see if you can just focus on doing everything with joy, it will change your day. So I said to myself, I'm not going to stress about these 18 other women who are all faster than me. From this point until I finish my race, I am only thinking happy thoughts. And it doesn't matter what happens to me, I am not allowing one bit of stress, worry, or doubt or fear to enter my mind. That was the pact I made with myself. And when I went out there the day of that race, I watched, the gun goes off, and I watched 8 women tear off the start line in front of me. And I have no idea what place I'm at, how fast they're going to run and how fast I'm running. And I'm thinking, I'm just doing what I need to do. And I'm trusting that God's going to take me exactly where I need to go. And I'm just thinking happy thoughts. And I literally ran with joy, just enjoying every step on the course, the beautiful scenery, just being in the moment. It's really powerful. And I kept telling myself, the party doesn't start until the halfway point, And at the halfway point of the race, I realized I started to pass women. Some women had slowed down, and I saw, one woman ended up stopping the race, another woman had an injury, and different things happening on the course. I still don't know what place I'm in, but I'm just running with trust. God is going to take me exactly where I need to go. 2 things happened. Towards the end of the race, I ended up actually having to throw up, but I remember telling myself, I'm not letting this stress me out. I'm just continuing to run with joy. And I did. And I even passed another woman. And the last kilometer, it's up a hill. I passed 2 women on the hill. And I still have no idea what place I'm in, but I know I need this 8th place. And I crossed the finish line of this marathon. Huge smile on my face. 2:36 time, 8th place woman. And I say it was the biggest miracle. I had no idea where I was, which place I was in, but I ran with joy, and I let my body just respond in kind, and I trusted that God was going to lead me where I needed to go. So my 4th message that I wanted to share is that during these times that we're in, and I think focus on the joy you can find in the simplest pleasures, in the most basic things. I always start my day, I ask my kids to list, we have a big sign in our house. It says, "Thank you, Hashem." And we all share one thing that we're grateful for. And it could be the most basic little thing, but when you start to find those things that make you happy, you will become a happier person. And it's a really powerful tool to changing your mindset and your life. Now, the last marathon I'm going to share with you is the marathon I ran most recently in January. And that was the Tiberias National Championship Marathon. And actually, I was supposed to run on Sunday. I was supposed to run a marathon in Rotterdam. And I was in the best shape of my life, and I'm not running it, obviously. God had other plans for all of us. But I always say we're on an adventure, and life is a journey. We don't know where it's taking us. And just if we look at it as this crazy adventure that we're on, it's so exciting. Who knows where we're headed? So the Tiberias National Championship Marathon, this was going to be the second race that I was using to try and qualify to make it to the top 80 ranking. And after running Cape Town, my coach pretty much told me that if I run a 2:34 in Tiberias and I win the race, then I should be good to make it to top 80. So we have our plan, and here again, I'm starting to train, and things are going well. And I remember I was reflecting back on my experience in Cape Town. When I had been in Cape Town, I realized that every time I'd been introducing myself to all the other elite athletes, I was the only white woman there actually. You know, the first question they ask you is, what's your PR? What's your personal record? What's the fastest time you run? And I would say, you know, 2:42. That was my PR at the time. But then I'd quickly follow up with like, oh, I left my 5 kids at home, or I only started running a year ago. And I realized, reflecting on that experience, that I was making excuses for myself. And I said to myself, you know, I don't want to I'm not someone who makes excuses. I don't want to make excuses for myself, because the truth is we all have perfectly legitimate and valid excuses for why we can't do something, for why something is too hard for us, for why this is too challenging, for why we can't handle it, for why we had to just, you know, lose control. It was too hard. We all have excuses, but we also have the choice. And the question we ask ourselves is, do you become a victim of your circumstances? Do you let your excuses take over? Or do you let those excuses light a fire to push you to become better, stronger, greater? And so I recognized after that, I said, I don't want to be someone who makes excuses, even though it's true. I have it harder. I'm a mom of 5. I have to juggle a lot. And I only started running seriously a year ago. But you know what? I'm going to use it to my advantage, and I'm going to let it push me to do to work as hard as I need to get there. And that's what fueled me going into this race for Tiberia. Now, 3 weeks before the race, my husband is crunching the numbers again of the ranking, and he tells me, Beatie, listen, I'm sorry, everyone's getting faster. And if you want to make it to top 80, guess what? 2:34 is not enough. You need to run a 2:32.25. Okay, he tells me this 3 weeks before the marathon. And it's not like I can really do much about it at this point. I'm like, are you crazy? I cannot run a 2:32 marathon. My fastest half marathon time is 1:15. And now you're telling me I need to run twice that distance and only take 2 minutes longer? That's not logical. But guess what? I also don't take no for an answer. And I don't give up very easily. And I always say, if God wants to help me get there, make it possible. And so I said, I guess if this is what I need to do, I'm going to go for it. I don't have anything to lose. And I told my coach, it seemed illogical, but I set that crazy goal. The day before the race, I had the privilege to pray at the grave of the holy Rabbi Meir, one of the sages from the Talmud. The name Meir means light, the root of or, light. And I remember thinking, when I go to his grave, I'm probably going to pray and ask God to help me win the marathon, right? That's what I need to do. I need to win, and I need to run a 2:32. But when I showed up at his grave and I started to pray, I was just overcome with emotion and tears. And the prayer that came out was the words of the prayer we say every Friday night, every mother says. And we ask God, we say, God, please help me raise children who light up the world with your Torah. And the prayer I said to God is, I'm a mother. God, help me. A simple request. Just help me raise my children to bring light into the world. And help me be a vessel to shine your light into the world. Because every single one of you here, you're all a vessel to reflect God's light into this world. And you each have a unique way of doing it. And that's what I asked God. I said, just let this race tomorrow be an opportunity for me to shine your light. And the day of the race, the next day, I ran Tiberias National Marathon Championship. And it was It was amazing. I had a pacer who was there to help me stay on track, to keep the pace I needed for the 2:32 marathon. And I was just supposed to follow him. He was supposed to run with me 30 kilometers. And then I had the final 12 on my own. And the first 30 were so smooth. Everything went perfectly. I felt so good. I smiled at every person I saw on the course. And I was first woman. There was no one near me. I was actually 4th overall on the course. And at 30 kilometers, that's when things start to get tough at a marathon. I started feeling it a little. It was getting a little hard. And my pacer turned to me and he said, even though he was only supposed to come 30, he said, I'm going to go another 2 kilometers with you. And after 2 more kilometers, he could see it was really challenging for me. And he continued to run with me. And I said, I am not going to lose 1 second in this fight. I am not going to give up when it's hard. And I always say, you know, one of my mantras in a race is define yourself. Because those people ask, like, what does it matter the seconds? But you know why those seconds matter? In that moment, it's not about the seconds. It's about those choices we make that define who we are. Because we all have difficult moments in our life. And when we're in those difficult moments, we have the choice. Do we give up or do we keep pushing? Do we keep going forward? And I didn't let myself lose 1 second. And it was a fight to the finish line, but I crossed that finish line in 2 hours, 32 minutes, 25 seconds. And my pacer, who wasn't supposed to run, spontaneously ran his first ever marathon with me. He ran with me all the way to the finish. He actually ended up coming 3rd place man, which was really cool for him. And because I ran the time I did, I qualified and made it to the top 80 ranking. I moved up to number 76 worldwide for women. And I was in a position to be able to represent Israel in the Olympics. Now, the Olympics have been pushed off a year, but God willing, I am praying that they do not reschedule the marathon on Shabbat, that they reschedule it on a Sunday or a Friday so that I can run. And my dream and goal is to proudly represent Israel on the Olympic stage as an Orthodox Jewish woman, mother, just to show the world that even at the highest level of athletics, you don't have to compromise on your values. You can stay true to who you are. And that even as a mother, you can pursue something you're passionate about. And my blessing to every single one of you listening, and thank you for allowing me to share my story. And I hope it leaves you with tools that can help you during these difficult times, is to remember, I have the words of my mantra. Someone made me a bracelet that says it, and my son was singing it to the tune of, I don't know if the song of Hashem is here, Hashem is there, but just to remember, God is with every single one of you, every step of the way. He's holding your hand, he's guiding you, and feel him giving you a hug, feel him holding your hand, and trust and know that he's taking you on a journey that's tailor-made for you, exactly where you need to go. Thank you so much, and maybe we have time for a few questions, chat, I don't know, it's up to the rabbi.
Thanks so much, really appreciate it. It's really fantastic and inspirational. I think the easiest way to do questions, instead of unmuting everyone, is that if someone wants to type a question in the text box, for those who know Zoom. So I think we'll take questions, I think, through the text box. So anyone want to type, just type. Can I ask the first one? Did anyone ever say anything about clothes? Like the fact that you're covered up and skirt, etc.
I've never gotten any negative comments. People have only been positive. I obviously look like a very strange runner out there. I don't look like any of the other professional runners. But I always say, like, when you respect yourself, people respect you. So I think it's only been really positive feedback that, like, people, you know, and one thing that I'm passionate about is just for all women out there to know, like, there's not one way you need to dress as a runner, and that you should feel comfortable dressing modestly and be proud of it, and however you dress, if you want, you know, like, sometimes we have this certain image in our head of this is how it has to be. And I think it's very empowering for women to know, like, there isn't one way. And for everyone to know, like, when I speak in schools, I tell the students, I'm like, go out there and be proud to be Jewish. Wear your kippah and wear it proudly, and whatever, you know, and when you respect who you are, people respect you for it.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, I think I think we're going to hold it there for a second. Remind me, when are the Olympics rescheduled for?
the Olympics have been rescheduled for summer of 2021. They announced the dates just now. It's very similar schedule to what it was supposed to be this year, like the dates, but they didn't announce the actual when the specific events are going to be yet. So I just wrote a letter to the Olympic Committee, and I'm trying to figure out exactly, sending it a few different places. I publicized it on my Facebook, and really requesting that, you know, if it's possible, that they should not reschedule the women's marathon for Shabbat. And my message really is, I believe sport, it should be accessible to everyone, regardless of religious, race, background. Sport is a powerful tool to unite us, and that we should all have the opportunity to participate and compete. So I'm hopeful, you know, we'll see.
Amazing. Well, look, we look forward to you representing Israel in the Olympics. Just a massive, huge thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's fine, 2020. So maybe time for a trip to Stanmore at some point before then.
One day, if the airports ever go back in service. Oh, someone asked me about my husband. My husband is an avid cyclist. He actually has accompanied me on some of my long runs. He rides his bike. He gives me water bottles. He helps like pace me. He is definitely into sports. And when I first started running, we used to run together every Saturday night. It was amazing date night. So he was actually in shape before I was, and he encouraged me. And now he's not a professional or any high level, but he loves cycling.
That's
and
cool.
He's been really supportive.
What do your kids think?
My kids, I think it's a mixed question. Like, they love that I come back. You know, they're very supportive. They're my biggest cheerleaders. They love, you know, we do family fun runs. Today we even did a 5K. Like, in Israel, we have serious lockdown rules, but we did like a 5K just like right in front of our house, just back and forth 100 meters, like 25 times. They love that. They're energetic. I think it's really, I think it's good for kids to see that, like, to pursue goals, to put in hard work, that, you know, a mother can have dreams and passions also. Obviously it's balanced. Like, I really try and prioritize my family and as much as possible, which is why I don't travel, which is why I haven't come to England yet. But yeah.
Okay, so there's one message on the group, and someone also asked me to ask one privately. So I think Melanie put a message on the group.
Oh, a message that someone asked me. Oh.
What do you do with training under lockdown?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I actually, the past 2 weeks, I had cellulitis. I wasn't able to run at all, which was like I took off like 10 days. It's finally now, thank God, like pretty much healed. So I have a treadmill, and I don't have it quite yet. I'm getting a treadmill. I'm trying out some new interesting thing that someone sent me for running in place. And I do a lot of strength training in my house. And I'm really looking at it, you know, there are so many athletes all around the world in similar positions. And I think that when you have these challenges, like I said in the beginning, you can become stronger from it. So to me, I'm going to work on like weaknesses in my form through strength training. It's going to be a really good work on mental game, because I'm stuck running in kind of boring conditions, and I'm not with my group, and I'm not with my coach, but I think it's going to help me come out stronger, you know?
Amazing. Great. Someone asked me, I'm just going to read it here. Can you ask if Beatie eats a normal Jewish diet, kugel, cholent, etc., or do you have to be more careful?
So if I'm training I think that I believe very much in balance. So I don't believe in like depriving yourself, but obviously I do eat healthy. I do think about how I'm fueling myself. It's easy because I'm also celiac. So like I can't eat a lot of things. So I'm like forced to be healthy in a certain way. For Shabbat, you know, on Shabbos, I always do, I save treats for Shabbat. I could enjoy Shabbat. I never was a cholent person. I never was a kugel person. We're a very like roasted vegetable type of house. So I think we like naturally eat more healthy, but we enjoy ourselves on Shabbat still.
Amazing. Brilliant. Great. All right. Thank you so much again for joining us. We really, really appreciate it, and wishing you real massive success. And hopefully we look forward to seeing you represent Israel in the Olympics.
Amen. And thank you so much for having me. It was really touching and like just amazing to connect with so many of you in another country. And like, you know, we're all in this together, and in a certain way, like we're alone, but we're together. And I'm really moved by how many of you, you know, showed up to hear me and share my journey with me. And I feel like I just feel humbled to be sharing with you. So thank you.
It really was fantastic. I think we can see, everyone in the group can see firsthand someone who is absolutely motivated and sees a goal and just wants to get there and achieve it. I think that comes across very, very strongly. And it's one of those key messages that I think is so important in life. So thank you again. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a good Shabbos. Really nice to see all of you. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will be out of this and on the other side very soon. God willing.
Enjoy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.